to another episode of First Down by CoachTools. Today I'm here with Coach Scott Chadwick from Clayton High School. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
Sure, glad to do it.
So, Coach and I, we're going to be talking a little bit about his coaching experience. He's had about 20 years of head coaching experience and almost 30 years of overall experience. So, to kick things off, Coach, can you just share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you've gotten into your current role at Clayton?
Sure. First off, I grew up in a football family. My father was a high school football coach, so I was on the football fields as long as I can remember. I sat in on coaches' meetings when I was a little kid, just kind of soaking everything up, and became a coach right out of college. Became a head coach at a young age. Now that was back when we've kind of got this trend of hiring young guys now. But that was kind of back before that happened. At the time, I was the youngest head coach ever in the state of Maryland when I was 28. I took over at Bowie High School, which is just outside of D.C. They'd had 10 straight losing seasons when I got there. We added 2 more to it, and then turned things around, won the state championship my 4th year there. And then I moved back into my hometown and coached 4 years at Lackey High School down in Southern Maryland. Again, a program that had kind of been mediocre. Went to 2 state championship games while I was there. Moved south at that point. Decided to move my family south. Spent 2 years in Georgia. Great place to live down there, just outside of Augusta, but just kind of not the right fit. And found a great opportunity just outside of Charlotte. I spent 5 years at Marvin Ridge High School. It was a new school at the time, just outside of Charlotte. And then from there, I went to Myers Park High School, which is in Charlotte, which is the largest school in the state of North Carolina. Was fortunate to have some really good teams there and really good players. We were nationally ranked the last couple of years I was there. And then COVID hit. COVID took away some great opportunities for us. We had Drake May at the time, and lost Drake's senior season, a bunch of other guys that were with him. We had games on ESPN scheduled. Drake and I were going to be in the Under Armour game, and we lost all that. And while we were just kind of hanging around during COVID, I got a call from Mike Loxley, the head coach at Maryland, offered me an opportunity to come up there and kind of run his recruiting and personnel department. So I took that, and I was up there for a couple of years. Learned a lot. It was a great experience to be around that quality. But the one thing I learned the most was that I'm a better fit at the high school level, and I have a lot of relatives here in the Raleigh area, and kept telling me about this one particular job that was open at a place that really values football, in a place that takes care of its football coaches, and that was Clayton High School. And so in June of 2022, I took the job here at Clayton, and been here this is my 2nd season here, and it's a great job. Probably, as far as a setup for a high school football coach, it's probably the best job I've ever had.
So going back to your early days, starting off as a head coach at 28, what are some things that you know now that maybe you would have liked to have known back then as a young coach?
It's funny. I talked to a lot of my players that I coached, when I was a younger coach. And they all talk about great experience they had playing for me, and I'm just like, wow. I'm like, I wasn't a very good coach back then, so I must have hit it pretty well. I think there's a lot of different things. I think first off, just from a football knowledge standpoint, while I had grown up around the game, and I had coached as an assistant, I didn't know the game anywhere near like I know it now. And I kind of feel like in some ways I had some players that I could have even done more with from a football standpoint. And even today, 23 years in, I still am constantly trying to evolve and trying to learn and trying to better myself from a knowledge standpoint. And then I think, the other part of it is just kind of evolving from just how to deal with kids and how to treat kids and how to understand that I think the most important thing you do in coaching is build relationships with kids and I think one of the things we strive here and one of the things that's in our objective and our core values is providing every kid in our program a great experience and making sure that no matter who they are, that when they leave our program they've had a great experience being in the program. And that's probably something early in my career I wasn't as focused on. Wasn't as focused on maybe what I would call the back end of your roster and making sure that the guys at the back end of your roster still have a great experience.
Sure. So you've obviously coached some high caliber players and you said it was Myers Park High School.
Yep. I had some in other places too, but yeah.
Okay. So what were those experiences like? And then can you also talk a little bit about how players over your 23 years have kind of changed over the generation?
Well, as far as coaching those guys, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's fun, in 2018 and 2019 at Myers Park, we led the state in scoring. 2019, we averaged 50 points a game. So, I mean, it's fun when you can do that. We had great players. Obviously, I think Drake was as good as any high school quarterback in the country then. We had, 4 Division I receivers and, so, I mean, yeah, it's fun. It's fun coaching those guys and it's fun, diagramming stuff and putting things together and, letting those guys go to work. In early my career, I had guys that, a running back, Barrington Edwards, that was on the national championship team at LSU, running back Morgan Green, at Lackey, who, still holds the state record for career rushing attempts. We had an offensive lineman named JB Walton, who his senior year was the #1 rated guard prospect in the country. But then I think for me though, the great part is the kids that may not necessarily be the highest recruited guys, but are great, high school football players. I go back to when I was at Lackey, I had a kid named Jeremy Hairston, who started every single game from his freshman year through his senior year, both ways at guard and defensive tackle. And to this day might be the best lineman I've ever coached. And he played at Shepherd because he was 6 foot tall. He was an All-American at Shepherd. But a guy like him, and he's now a head high school coach in West Virginia. So, it's the guys like that too that I remember that were great high school football players that had just as much of an impact as the guy playing next to him who went to Penn State. As far as how things have changed, I think I think social media has changed things greatly. Now you've got that. I don't know if distraction is the right word, but it definitely plays so much more into the equation. And then you've also got guys that have so many more opportunities to in the off season to better themselves. There's all kinds of different training opportunities out there, some good, some not as good. But I think that's the other thing, is that it has become so much more of a year-round cycle with football. And I think a lot of times we tell our kids all the time that, you need to get away from it at sometimes and you need to recover. So I think most of the time that's been good, but there are times when, we've told kids, hey, you kind of need to take a break from this too.
Sure. So going back to your days at the University of Maryland, what are some things that you maybe look for in recruits and things that maybe aren't as quite obvious, like size and speed, that high school kids should be aiming to do?
My thing was, and I used to tell the guys that worked for me, obviously, you're looking for the measurables and all that stuff, but I wanted to get to know the kids we were recruiting because I wanted guys that I used to say make the room better. Do they make that offensive line room better? Do they make the running back room better? Do they make the DB room better? You know, that's kind of the one part that I think, kind of gets left out a lot of times in recruiting is get to know the kid and get to know, is he going to make your culture better? Is he going to make, the people around him better? And I know I stood on the table for a couple of guys, when I was at Maryland that, didn't have the same stars as other people. But my thing was they were going to make our team better because of the kind of quality of people they were. And I think that's something that is highly undervalued, is the, what does that person do to make the room that he's in better? And, we took a couple of guys when I was there that, weren't as highly recruited as some of the other people. But we knew coming in, they were going to be the kind of guys you wanted in your program.
Yeah. And how important is that for a high school recruit who might not be like a 5-star or a 4-star to display those qualities? And like what specific qualities are guys like you looking for, like when you were in that role?
Well, I think, you're looking at guys that are leaders. I think it's a red flag for me when you have the guys who are the best players on their team, but they aren't team captains. That's a bit of a red flag for me. I always like guys that played multiple sports, because the one thing that, multiple sport guys tell me is that, they like to compete. I don't want guys that, want to play one sport and then go with their trainer, the other 8 months of the year. I want guys that, want to play multiple sports, that want to compete because they're used to being in competitive situations. We took a kid at Maryland, who again wasn't highly recruited. He was an offensive lineman, but he was 75-1 as a heavyweight wrestler his sophomore and junior years. And the one thing that told me was that, number one, he was competitive and he knew how to win. And as an offensive lineman, don't you want guys that, know how to win one-on-one battles? That's what this guy had done. And he was the team captain of his football and his wrestling team as a junior. So, those are the kind of things we look for. Like I said, it's a red flag to me if your teammates don't think enough of you that you might be the best player, but you're not a captain. Again, just guys that want to compete and guys that, that winning is important to them.
Right. And actually, I think I know who that was. Was he a Malvern Prep guy?
He was Colton Deary.
Yeah, that's where I went to high school. That's funny.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, small world. No, I mean those intangibles and just like going under the surface, from what I've found in these conversations, it's like, you're gonna find your guys. Like it's easy to find the 5-star, 6'5", 300.
Yeah. Anybody can find those guys.
Yeah, yeah. But it's important to, like you were saying, understand a little bit more about the player.
Yep.
So great. So any last words of advice you wanted to share with the audience here before we kind of hop off?
Well, I think the biggest thing is people always ask me in coaching, I have a reputation, I think, throughout my career of I've always gone places that, needed a little bit or a lot in some cases of rebuilding. And I think the one thing I've always taken great pride in is that people will tell you that, I've never really had too many seasons where we didn't maximize, the talent that we had. We may not have always won championships. We may not have always been, great, but we at least maximize what we had. And people have said to me, how do you always do that? And my thing is, get to know your kids, build relationships with your kids. Because if your kids feel like that you care about them and you're getting to know them outside of football, when it comes to football, they're going to give you their best. And, I was talking about a team, I was watching on film a couple weeks ago, and they had a new coach, and they were kind of a lot better than they were last year. And I watched how hard they play. You could even see on film how hard the team was playing. And I'm like, that's the mark of a good coach, is you see his guys are playing hard for him. And I think, again, the key to that is, guys will play hard for you when they know that you care about them more than just as a football player. And I think that's 23 years in as a head coach. I'm still trying to, to work on that. And look, it's hard in football. I used to joke with the basketball coach I worked with at Myers Park that, Mike, man, I'd love to be a basketball coach and only have to get to know, 13, 14 kids. I'd be the best, head basketball coach ever, because I would be able to get the most out of those kids, because there's only so many you have to get to know. We have 70 guys on our varsity and 72 guys on our JV here. I mean, that's a lot of kids to have to try to, get to know. And I think it's something you have to be intentional about. We send every year, like twice a year, I send out something to our kids, just asking them to fill out stuff, about themselves, just so we can, get to know them a little bit. So it's something you have to be intentional about, getting to know them, and getting to try to make a difference other than football. If I could, I'll share one quick story with you. I think 2017, 2018, we had graduation day at Myers Park. And I was sitting there with my wife because my daughter was graduating. And the senior class president got up and spoke. His name was Davis McMillan. And Davis, during his senior class president speech, talked about football and, how he had gone out for football his junior and senior year, and how playing football just, changed his whole high school career, how playing football, meant so much to him, the relationship the relationships he built, the memories he made, and just what a big deal it was. And my wife kind of looked over at me and was like, "Who is this kid again?" I'm like, "Well, you probably wouldn't know, Davis, because he played about 5 snaps in 2 years. He never played." And my wife, who's, not really big on giving compliments to me, was like, "Hey, that's one of the best things anybody's ever said, that a kid like that talked about what a great experience and how important football was to him, and he never played." And so it kind of let me know that we were kind of doing things the right way. And again, it's about giving an experience to every kid in your program, not just not just the top guys. And it's why in our objective and core values, we don't mention anything about getting kids to the next level. That's not one of our objective and core values. Now, we're going to do that. We're going to send multiple guys to play. We had 7 guys last year. I got here in June, still had 7 guys signed last year. Last year, we had the first ever SEC player in the history of this program last year. So we're going to get guys to the next level, but it's never going to be our main objective, because even if we have 7 or 8 guys every year that sign, that's still only, about 10% of our program over the 4-year period. So what are you telling the other 80 to 90% of the kids if that's your main objective? You're telling them that their experience doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So for us, everybody's experience matters.
Yeah. That's a great perspective. And in my playing experience, like we were talking earlier about Coach Streeter, that's somebody that I admired, and that's something that he always emphasized, was just getting to know everybody. Like in my freshman season, I was somebody who I came in injured, so I didn't even touch the field, but he still got to know me, and I've still kept in touch with him. So, those are the coaches that definitely make an impact and help just make those experiences that much better. So,
absolutely.
yeah, I really do appreciate you sharing the experience here, Coach. And Best of luck the rest of the season here. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you.